What's up, everybody? How's it going out there? Welcome back to my channel, and thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today I am reviewing Bernard Cornwell's The Winter King. It is the first in a trilogy of books that he wrote in the late 90s based on the King Arthur classics, and it is called the Warlord Chronicles trilogy, or the Arthurian Chronicles. This is a historical fiction novel set in the, I think it's 4th or 5th century, somewhere thereabouts. And I guess there is a TV series that was just made on this trilogy that is supposedly horrible, so if you watch that, proceed at your own peril. I became interested in this particular story because the Arthurian legend was talked about in a book I read recently called Man and His Symbols, and it was brought up in the context of the symbol of the self, which appears in a lot of different ways. But one of them is a circle, and Jung made the connection that the symbol of the self is represented as the round table, where the knights of the round table sit. And with that example, he was talking about how each knight at the round table, the reason it's round is it indicates a number of things. One is that each person sitting at the table is an equal part of the whole. And of course, the self, according to Jung, or at least my interpretation of what Jung has said, it's something like the manifestation of your truest self, your fullest self, the self that fulfills your highest potential, or something like that. So I was really interested in reading the Arthurian legends because, one, they're canonized as classics in the Western canon anyway, and there's a lot of good symbolism in these books that I think is worthy to understand. And it's kind of exciting after you read someone like Jung understanding all of those symbols, or at least some of those symbols, and then reading historical nonfiction or fantasy, and now being able to connect the dots as you read and understand what these symbols mean and how they inform character and plot and setting and things like that. And the first book in this series is a little under 500 pages, and I was hooked, honestly, in the first chapter. The very first scene was kind of packed with tension and action. And I think Bernard Cornwell does a very good job of describing what life was like in 4th, 5th century Britain, and it was brutal, not gonna lie. But what I did like about this book is that even though there are brutal moments to it, he doesn't really go into depth about all of the crazy shit that would happen in 4th and 5th century Britain, and there is a lot of crazy shit that happens. But if you are someone who doesn't like gore and, you know, all that kind of stuff, he doesn't really describe it in full length, but you know it's happening. And the book felt pretty tightly written to me. Even though it was 500 pages, I didn't feel like there was a lot of fluff, if any. There are plenty of battle scenes, of course, but in between those battle scenes were really compelling character building / romance aspects, and each of the relationships that these characters had with each other, even if it was romantic or not, they did have implications politically as to what was happening throughout Britain. Going into reading this book, I wasn't sure how he was going to handle the fantasy / magic aspect of the Arthurian legends, and I was pretty pleased with how he did it. It was very grounded in reality and grounded into what people would have believed in that day and age. And the way Bernard Cornwell describes the settings throughout Britain, it's honestly a perfect book to read in the wintertime, 100%. Curl up on the couch, hopefully there's a fresh blanket of snow on the ground, and this is your book. But I thought that each character was compelling. Each had their own incentives. Each had their way of politically maneuvering. Each one was flawed. Arthur himself was very flawed, and you'll see if you read the book that he kind of comes across in the beginning as someone who can do no wrong, but that is definitely not the case, and I won't spoil anything, but Arthur was written very well, in my opinion, from the standpoint that even though he's the hero in this larger-than-life character, his actions really affected the most people, and sometimes it wasn't always for the good. And I appreciate really well-written characters like that who are flawed and highly relatable, and there are plenty of relatable characters in this book. Now, the one thing I did struggle with were the names and locations, because in my opinion, there's quite a few. I don't read a ton of historical fiction novels like this one, and it is helpful that he's got the list of characters, boom, right there. He's got all the characters in there, and I had to reference this character list quite a bit, and he also has a map of the land, and everything is super condensed in Britain, the way he has set up all of these towns, and it was kind of difficult for me to follow, like, oh, this king is now attacking this location, and this person is now going there, and I kind of lost track as to where everything was, and I had to keep going back and referencing the map, which is fine. It's a vast setting, so that's understandable, but that was one thing that kind of kept me from getting in a groove with the story and moving along. I just had to keep referencing, oh, who is that again? You know, what did he do? What did she do? Where is this? But if that doesn't bother you, then you're going to have a great time with this book. But this was definitely a good first entry in the series. Super compelling story, and the plot lines are nicely set up for the second book. And by the way, I got this on Thrift Books, I think, and it was like $10 with shipping. So pretty inexpensive and good deal, and came in great shape. And if you've gotten any value out of this video, please hit the like button, comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and as always, please subscribe to the channel for more content. But that's gonna wrap it up for me and the Winter King. I'd give it a, I don't know, probably like a solid 4 out of 5, I think. Solid story, good characters, and a great setup for the second book. But thank you everybody for watching this video. You take care, and I will see you in the next one.